From AccuWeather.com, this is AccuWeather Daily, a brief host-read article. It's weather news in a nutshell. Well, record amounts of sargassum seaweed are slowly moving west and north across the Atlantic, piling up on the shores of Caribbean islands, including some popular spring break destinations. At the end of February, scientists at the University of South Florida Optical Oceanography Lab sounded the alarm. Sargassum seaweed, forming earlier and more abundantly than ever this season in the Atlantic, worse than the record year of 2022. At the end of February, the largest concentration of the nearly 14 million metric tons of sargassum was in the Atlantic east of the Leeward Islands, where record levels for January and February were set. Official records of sargassum coverage started back in 2011. Now, the report says that the amount of sargassum will continue to increase, and this year is likely to be another major sargassum year. The largest sargassum inundation risk says that most of the coast of southern Cuba, Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, and the northern Lesser Antilles remain in a high risk for seaweed to wash up. The high-risk area also includes the eastern Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, Miami Beach, and most of the Florida Keys. While many of these locations are prime spring break destinations, most resorts are used to dealing with these stinky piles of seaweed. On Friday, Royal Caribbean announced it was investing in a major program to manage sargassum in Mexico. In Miami, sargassum removal is an annual event, accounting for $9 million of the $11 million beach maintenance budget each year. Ultimately, though, currents and wind patterns dictate which beaches are inundated with this brown stuff. Sargassum never touches the seafloor until it dies. The algae tends to float in island-like chunks and serves as breeding grounds for fish, turtles, birds, and other sea life. Now, is there anything dangerous about it, you might ask? And the answer is no, not really. More of an irritant than anything. The hydrogen sulfide gas it releases when it rots is not only stinky, but can irritate your eyes, nose, and throat. It also could contain some jellyfish or sea lice that could irritate your skin, so try not to come into contact with it if you can. After a brutal winter, signs of spring are slowly emerging, including the potential for a beautiful cherry blossom bloom this year in Washington, D.C. Peak bloom occurs when about 70% of the Yoshino cherry blossoms are open, creating a stunning landscape of pink and white around the Tidal Basin. Peak bloom dates vary from year to year depending on the weather, but typically occur in late March or early April. Now, on Thursday, the National Park Service, the National Cherry Blossom Festival, and the Trust for the National Mall announced the official forecast peak bloom dates for this spring, indicating a peak bloom may happen between March 29th and April 1st. The Cherry Blossom Watch says peak bloom could happen earlier or later, depending on temperatures in late winter and early spring. In recent decades, however, peak bloom dates have trended earlier. Yoshino cherry trees require a certain number of chill hours during winter to prepare for blooming. Prolonged deep freezes can delay the blooming process, while stretches of mild weather could accelerate it. Peak bloom last year was on March 28th. Now, surely D.C. is not the only place that you can see burgeoning cherry blossoms, right? It is a spring tradition in D.C., but stunning displays can also be found in Chicago and New York City. In Chicago, cherry blossoms bloom along the Columbia Basin in Jackson Park near the Garden of the Phoenix. Last year marked the first significant bloom there in several years after weather conditions limited previous displays. In New York City, cherry blossoms can be found across multiple boroughs. Popular viewing spots include Central Park, the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, Flushing Meadows Corona Park in Queens, and Roosevelt Island. Each spring, these locations feature vibrant pink and white cherry blossoms that typically peak later than those in D.C. In both New York City and Chicago, peak bloom usually occurs in April. Last year, the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens Cherry Blossom Festival took place in late April. Cherry blossoms typically last 1 to 2 weeks, depending on wind, rain, and temperature swings. And some sad news to report out of Oklahoma this week after a multi-day severe weather threat unfolded across the plains, claiming at least 2 lives Thursday night when a mother and daughter were killed after a likely tornado struck northern Oklahoma. The Oklahoma Highway Patrol said the 47-year-old mother and her 13-year-old daughter were found in their vehicle near U.S. Highway 60 and County Road 2340. They were both from Fairview. The National Weather Service office in Norman surveyed the damage on Friday after multiple tornadoes were reported Thursday night, moving through northern Oklahoma toward the Kansas border. Video from Fairview Emergency Management showed a large tornado moving across the highway west of Fairview as lightning flashes illuminated the tornado. In addition to the deadly tornado, the National Weather Service received reports of damaging winds up to 60 miles per hour and hailstones as large as 2 inches in diameter. The threat of dangerous tornadoes, hail, and damaging winds will continue into the new week as almost daily severe storms are forecast to erupt from Texas into the Midwest. That's all for now. You can find regional forecasts and science-based articles at AccuWeather.com, and for your local forecast at your fingertips, download the AccuWeather app. Enjoy the rest of your day. Be safe. I'll be back on Monday with more from AccuWeather.